Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the pits of Metal and Motor Chaos. This is your host, Dave. In just a minute, I'm going to have special guest, driver of the Agent Orange, Nitro Fuel Altered, Eric Gates. So, hope everyone's ready to listen to Eric Gates. Let me get him on the phone. Hold on. Bear with me, people. Hold on.
Hello, this is Eric.
Hey, Eric. You're live on air on Pits Metal Motor Chaos. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing?
Not bad. A little rainy out here in Illinois. Other than that, it's okay. How's the weather out there in Cali?
Oh, man, you can't beat it. Sunny and 70, loving it.
You got good drag racing weather.
We do. I mean, some other things are happening in the world right now, slowing that down a little bit.
Yeah.
But, that's understandable. But, yeah, we just had the March meet a few weeks ago, and the weather was perfect. It was beautiful.
So how'd the altered one for you at the March meet?
You know, we didn't do so hot on the track, but I think we looked halfway decent. It was a fun time, and that's the main thing. We're going out there putting on a show and having fun and trying not to go broke in the process. But we had a good time.
That's good. So how many more events you looking to run for the year?
Well, we've got 2 bookings right now. We're going to be at Tucson with our AA Fuel Altered. It's the name of the car is Agent Orange, and we're going to be part of the show with the United UNFC, the funny cars. So they're going to have funny cars and fuel altered. I think that's May 8th, I want to say. You might have to check. But and then there's a race in Boise in August that we're going to go to. So we're going to head up to Idaho. I haven't raced up there before, but heard a lot of good things. And they put on a good show from what I've seen, on TV and such. So should be a good time.
Now you're not going to run at the Hot Rod Reunion?
The Hot Rod Reunion's a little bit different. They have an 8-car show, and we're not one of the 8. That's okay, and I understand that. But, I've also got my youngest son still running junior dragsters, so we hit that pretty hard, too. So I think there's a race that weekend with the juniors. So plenty of racing going on.
Very cool. I'll have to get your son on the air with me one of these days for an interview.
There you go.
I've had two junior dragster drivers on so far.
Yep. I tell you, it's ultra competitive and a lot of fun. And my oldest graduated from it last year, and my youngest will be graduating from it this year. And they both are itching to drive, but I don't think I'm going to put them into a fuel altered quite yet. But we're looking at maybe getting a front engine dragster put together here in the next few years to let them play around. Maybe the old man can drive it too.
So how old is your oldest now?
He's 19. He's a student at UNLV, so he's home right now, but doing really well there. And my youngest is a sophomore in high school, so a couple high school guys love drag racing.
Now, are they both pulled out of school for now?
Yeah, they're pulled out. They're home. Everybody actually, we just had the governor on the TV just before I picked up the phone with you. So yeah, it's getting serious, but all is well, and we're hunkered down as a family, and fortunately we can go in the garage and tinker on the car if we get bored.
Yeah, I just read an article on that. He was saying somehow he wants people to stay home.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and if everybody listening, I strongly recommend it. From what research I've done, it's serious stuff happening right now. But hey, it's great when you can, talk about racing though. And we're really lucky here in California. We had like I said, we had the March meet recently, so the thing is, I've got the bug right now, so from that, so it's hard to sit still. But yeah, we're surviving.
Well, you get to enjoy your family time for now.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's a plus.
Enjoy the kids.
Yep.
So, Eric, let me go back with you in time here and ask you, how did you get into drag racing?
I was basically born into it. I grew up in the Midwest, and our family had auto parts stores. We had Napa stores, so my dad, being in the auto parts business, was a drag racer, and so I, from birth, basically, was around race cars. And being his only son, it was me and him usually, me following him around, carrying fuel jugs and whatever at the track, and just, really idolizing what he was doing. He crewed on a funny car when I was young. He had a couple dragsters that we raced in Iowa. So I really got the bug. One thing we would do every summer is we'd go to Indy, to the U.S. Nationals. We went 6 years in a row. So I'd always miss the first week of school, but as a kid. But it just as a fan going to the big the big race at Indy, really was a fun deal for us. And when we moved to California, we eventually got a dragster here, and I went to San Diego State, and I finally graduated, and he gave me a helmet for my graduation, so I got to get my license in an injected dragster at Carlsbad, and raced with my dad for a lot of years. We ran a lot of dragsters. We had a lot of fun. We had a lot of success. We won 2 SKIDA championships. We won a track championship at Inyokern one year. But I really wanted to go funny car racing, so we sold the dragster, and I started accumulating parts, and my dad, did a lot of research and came up with, a game plan and a fuel system and a whole bunch of things. We went out and started running SIFCA in 2008. So I was running a funny car, and we ended up winning the Governor's Cup the first year out. Had a really good time with that, but unfortunately he passed away. He had a heart attack at Verona at one of the arm drop races we were booked into there as an exhibition. Happened right on the starting line. So,
wow.
It's really bittersweet just talking about it. All the good times we had with my dad, but it was really sad, and the whole family was there. But it something his health deteriorated a bit near the end, and he would always say, when I'm gone and things like that. And I said, Dad, don't talk like that. But he was always looking to the future with that car and with my racing and so forth, and with the family as well. But just from a racing perspective, he really built a solid foundation that we were able to build on after he passed. We were, you kind of look in the mirror and say, do I want to keep doing this? And we all decided yes, and that's what he would have wanted. So, we kept it up. And I'm actually running that same car that we started running in 2008. I've run it through SIFCA, through Western Fuel Altereds on alcohol, and now on blown nitro.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, the crew and I, we all have ties back to that, and of course my family. And every time we go racing, there's always a John would have done this, or John would have liked that type of thing about my dad. So even what are we talking? 10, 12 years later, he's still a big part of it.
Man, every time you get in that car, he's always with you still.
I really believe that. I mean, we took the car out the first time on nitro at the March meet 2 years ago, and I completely lucked out and ended up in the final round. But that was one of those days where we all just knew he was smiling.
Yeah.
Giving us some luck that day. So Yep.
So what year did you start drag racing?
Well, that would have been, let's see, probably around, I was 21, like 1988, I suppose, 88, 89. And I really didn't start competitively for a couple of years after that. I got a job and, kind of found my way. And eventually, I think it was 1992, was my first race at Palmdale. And 93, though, I came out and did pretty well with, you might recall that, I don't know if you've ever heard of SKIDA, but it was pretty big in Southern California. It was a bracket racing organization for dragsters, and it branched out into just basically like a super pro type organization. But I was fortunate enough to be champion of that in 93, and that kind of built a lot of, confidence within myself and the family. And we did pretty well for a few years there with the dragster.
So after all these years, Eric, what still keeps you passionate about doing the drag racing?
Well, it's just part of your everyday, what drives you. I mean, I've found that, it gave me a lot of, drag racing gave me a lot of, kind of like a home base, if you will. For instance, when you go to Pomona and you're just sitting up in the stands, let's say, I mean, there's people all around that you've been going there with for years. So it's like kind of like a family. Same thing with at the track, other competitors, other racers, camaraderie. But it's more than that. I mean, you'll hear this from a lot of drivers, I'm sure, and especially drivers. It's just something that's in you. It won't go away. I couldn't imagine, walking away. And I've been very fortunate that I'm still able to do it. But in the same respect, though, I really get a lot of enjoyment seeing my sons have that same, that same approach to it. And, of course, for them and for most kids coming up through the sport, the deal is you've got to do good in school. You got to keep your nose clean to be able to race. And they've held up their end of the bargain on that. So, I think it's a motivator as well. So, but nothing beats that acceleration.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a rush, a total rush.
A big adrenaline rush, huh?
It really is. It really is, and we've been pretty quick with this car on alcohol, and we haven't quite got everything to come together yet on nitro, but like I said, we haven't been hurting parts, but I can't wait to go lay one down. I wish I had the budget to test more, but we just want to go out and lay one down, and hopefully we can do that here in Tucson our next time out.
So how was the first time experience switching over to nitro for you?
All those years, I'd never driven a clutch car, believe it or not. Now, of course, on the street and trucks and so forth. But I mean, in terms of driving in this case, not a pedal clutch, but a crawler glide type slipper clutch, I'd never driven one before. I'd always worked with automatics and so on and so forth. So the first time I got into that car was at the March meet, and with the nitro and the clutch, and it was you could have seen the grin coming out of my helmet, from the top end. I mean, it was just so cool to let out the clutch, do the burnout, drop it in reverse, back it up carefully. I mean, the whole deal, even staging it. I'd have to say, it as a driver, sometimes you run it through your mind so many times in advance that I knew all the steps, and it was almost muscle memory, even though I hadn't done it before. So fortunately, I went out there and was able to get the car down the track. But just having that nitro cackle under your foot, it's like nothing else. It was a huge step, and I don't regret it for 1 second. I don't think I want to go back. Let's just put it that way.
So what's the quickest pass you've made on nitro?
On nitro, I'm embarrassed to say we really haven't got down the track that well. On alcohol, we were regularly in the mid to low sixes consistently. We were two-time Western Fuel Alder champions with the car. but we weren't running. Now, when I say nitro, I'm talking 90% full load of nitro, like we are right now. So, what it turns out to be with the car right now is I flat out, skimped and didn't buy new tires for the March meet. I should have, because the car had really impressive numbers out to about the 330 and even one run to the 660, but I kept hunting towards the center line. The tires are just shot. And in hindsight being 2020, I should have marched right down to either Mickey Thompson or Goodyear and bought a set right there, but things happen so quickly at the track, and we're on a shoestring budget too, so that's part of it. But believe me, when we go out to Tucson, there will be new tires on the car.
Now, Eric, besides your dad being one of your biggest influences for you, are there any other drag racers that influenced you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And when I mentioned going to all those years to the Indy for 6 years straight, I mean the drivers there, really, I would watch them. I would basically worship them. I mean, a lot of kids will feel that way about football players or baseball players. That's the way I feel about drag racers. Guys like Jungle Jim and Don Prudhomme and Don Garlett, Gary Beck, and on down the line. I mean, there's so many that were an influence, and all positive influences. Because, one thing, as you know, about drag racing is you can go to the pits and you can actually talk to these people, and you can actually watch them and see how the crew works and so on and so forth. So, I mean, there's just a long list of people that have had an influence on my career, in terms of really getting me hooked on the sport.
Right.
But again, and over the years, there's too many to mention. People that have helped me along the way with either parts or advice, or maybe the guy in the next trailer over, a competitor maybe that showed me a thing or two. But yeah, there's just so many people.
Now, do you ever get any advice from Ron Capps?
Ron, I've had a chance to chat with him once. Both of our sons junior race against each other occasionally. So, and that was mainly as a, kind of like a fatherly chat, at the track. But no, a close friend of mine though is Jack Beckman, and I get a lot of good advice from him. He actually signed 2 of my license upgrades, the one to Advanced DT for SIFCA and the one for Nitro. So, it's good to have people like that you can, ask questions to, that have actually been there. And a lot of times they in the case of Jack, and he is, he's been an educator in his past, with the racing school. So he puts it in terms that a dummy like me can understand, and really that helps in a lot of ways. But the most important way is just to help with my self-confidence. So it's been a positive.
All right, now, who are all your crew members for the Altered?
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, I have to mention my wife Stacy. I mean, she doesn't touch the car, but believe me, she's the most important part of the crew, supporting me with everything I do and along the way. But Scott Sharp's my tuner. Greg Larson does cylinder heads. Mike Whitmer on the clutch with my son Ethan. Peter Salvato does the bottom end. My son Jack, since he's here at the house all the time, he's always helping me, prep the car for the races. And then Daniel Call's a friend of mine who's not on the crew per se, but he's definitely in the inner circle. And, we've got a lot of other racing plans in the future with his car, hopefully. But and then Greg Larson, who I mentioned on Cylinder Heads, owns Cylinder Head Services in San Diego. And it's a really reputable shop in San Diego. And he's been helping me as long as I've been driving, with whatever he can do to help in terms of, working at the shop and Cylinder Head Services. So couldn't do it without him.
So do you have any sponsorship for the car?
Yeah, Cylinder Head Services is the main source of support. I have a lot of product sponsors and whatnot, but and you'll see those on the side of the car. But But nope, it's pretty much me, myself, and I in terms of the finances. Yeah.
Yep. The big pocket. Your pocket's one of your sponsors.
Yeah. Basically, yeah. I'm usually sitting on it. Yeah, my wallet.
Now, when you're on the track out there on the starting line, do you have any pre-race rituals or superstitions when you're out there?
Definitely not when I'm on the track. I mean, once they light that car, it's all business, and I do have a routine, and like I mentioned before, I do a lot of mental prep, running it through in advance how the run's going to go and so forth. But you know what I will tell folks is, if I back up a little bit, when you're in the staging lanes, that's when a lot of these things kind of come into play, where you're interacting with other people. For instance, when I'm about 4 cars back in the lanes, I'll grab my boots, I'll sit in the back of the truck, put my boots on first. You know, of course, I'll already have had my 20-layer pants on, but put the boots on, and then I'll walk up and put the helmet on and the jacket and all the various gear, and I've got a crew guy that will help me put my harness on, you know, around my neck harness, and snap that in. And then I'll make sure to go to every crew member and give them a little fist bump. I usually go behind the car and kind of use my toe and just rattle the wheelie bar. I mean, I never expect the thing to be loose or anything, but it's just a habit. I kind of check the parachutes, and then I get right up, and in a funny car, you kind of go under the body and snake your way in, whereas a fuel altered, I step up on the tire, grab the wing, sit on the cage, and kind of just sit right down into the cockpit. Sometimes, if there's a Racers for Christ fellow there, you know, they'll come over and do a little prayer. But in terms of any superstitions or anything like that, I mean, I pretty much keep it simple. I just make sure that, you know, at that point that I'm in the car and I'm as calm as possible. I was lucky enough to do a Frank Hawley seminar one time, and, you know, he mentioned that, you know, people, I think the example he used was Dale Earnhardt, the famous stock car racer, would have a heartbeat rate of like 72 in the car. And of course, Frank Hawley said, you know, having a low heartbeat is an advantage when you're trying to be cool, calm, and collected in a race car. So I've always subscribed to that. I know over the years I've seen other competitors, and I don't see it much in the funny car and the altered ranks, but you see competitors try to pump themselves up, and it's kind of the opposite of the approach that I take, Frank Hawley recommends, which is to stay calm. So I try to stay calm. It doesn't always work. You can ask my crew, but that's what I try to do.
Now, throughout your drag racing career, have you had any accidents or close calls?
I've had a few close calls. Fortunately, no accidents. And during my bracket racing days, I may have hit the brakes too hard a couple times, and you know, and the finish line. And boy, you do that once, and you learn quick. One time in particular at Bakersfield, I was in the semifinals at night, and I had a big lead on the guy, and I really wanted to close it up quickly, and I hit the brakes pretty hard in the right lane and got up on 2 wheels and came back down on 2 wheels and then set it down straight. And it was funny. The first person to me wasn't the safety crew. It was Jack Beckman, who went out the run before, and he was on his scooter down there, and he said he saw the bottom side of my slicks from over the guardrail. So I got really lucky on that one. And then I had one at Tucson 2 years ago where they prepped the track out to a certain point, and it might not have been ready for me that early in the day, and I got down there, and it broke loose at about 1,200 feet, just right before the finish line, and it got all sorts of out of shape. The type of thing you see quite a bit, actually, in halters and funny cars down there, but it's the closest call I had. And I had a lot of other people come up to me and say, wow, you saved that thing. And I was just like, thank God. But knock on wood, nothing any worse than that.
Yeah, knock on wood, you won't have any accidents.
That's it.
So now, Eric, what kind of preparation goes into getting this fuel altered ready for a weekend of drag racing?
Oh man, it's nonstop. It really is. I mean, it's pretty much. It's not just the car either. I mean, you talk about all aspects of it, whether it be the truck, the trailer, making sure you have spare parts, the gear, coordinating crew, travel plans, family travel plans. You know, people getting tickets at the event. But I mean, the real important aspect of it, though, of course, is the car prep. And in our case, you know, basically at the track between rounds, we'll do a leak down on each cylinder and make sure we don't have anything, like a hole in a piston or a bent valve or something like that. But it's a matter of dropping the pan, checking all the bearings. Between race, we'll check lifters, we'll take the valves out, check valve spring pressure, check valves for make sure they're true and straight, and obviously that they're sealing. Then there's the whole clutch deal. You know, you have to grind discs and so on and so forth between races. So it's a labor of love. I mean, there's a lot of work. My crew chief Scott Sharp says that drag racing's the sport where you gotta love work and hate money, and that's pretty much the truth.
So, what are some of your favorite tracks to race on?
Boy, I pretty much like any track that's open. I mean, I'll support any track that supports drag racing, but I guess the way to answer that is it kind of varies. Now, for a national event, I mean, you gotta love Pomona to be able to go to the World Finals or the Winter Nationals, and I love going to those races there at Pomona. And I've raced there a few times over the years, and I'd like to get back to racing there pretty soon. They don't have fuel altereds there, but I wouldn't mind racing with the NHRA again. And then from a juniors perspective, you know, there's our local track, Verona, and there's also Las Vegas. My kids love running that race in Las Vegas. But from a fuel altered perspective, you know, I really like racing at Tucson. The fans there just love nitro. They love fuel altereds. They show up in droves, and it's a fun track. It always has been. So, you know, I guess I answered 3 tracks for you, but 4 tracks, but it's all a good time.
Now, do you do all quarter mile racing, or do you 8th mile too?
Oh, we do 8th mile, yeah. Verona runs everything on the 8th mile there. You know, of course, my son's with the juniors. Junior drag racing is done on the 8th mile. So I'll do 8th mile, 1,000 foot, quarter mile. I don't think I'd do half mile, but but no, I'm definitely not a quarter mile snob. I'll take it any way I can get it.
And the 8th mile kind of saves on the wear and tear on the car, right?
It does. You know, it's a good show for the fans. Usually, I mean, not usually. In all cases, I know when I've went to 8th mile tracks, it's a lot of fun. I've went to some back east where they have pro mods and such, and they seem to run a quicker show, and you know, it's all good.
Now, with that fuel altered, the Agent Orange, can you put a funny car body on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the same chassis that we ran originally in Sifka with a fiberglass Pontiac Firebird body on. We had that for a few years. I then switched to the fuel altered, running it on alcohol, and had a couple different 23T bucket type bodies on it. And then one year the WFA decided, and I thought it was great, that they would mix funny cars and altereds. So I actually went out and bought a body from Sean Bellemere. It was a carbon fiber Camaro body. We put it on the car and won a couple races with it. So it's the kind of thing that if a funny car deal came along, you know, we could throw a funny car body on it in probably a couple weekends, and you know, in terms of mounting it and so forth, and be off and running. So, you know, a lot of people call it the Transformer, and I guess that's where we fit in. We're kind of the Transformer deal. It's not that I'm pro-Transformer or against short cars, not by any means. it just so happens it's nice to have the flexibility to run one or the other.
Well, if Chris Graves ever brings the Funny Car Chaos out to the West Coast, then you can put the Funny Car body on and run it at Funny Car Chaos.
In a hot minute, in a heartbeat. You better believe it. That looks like, everybody that's been to one of those shows loves it. And I just look at the number of cars that turn out, the fans and all that. That's a great deal. I mean, Amarillo's kind of a long haul from here, but, if he could get it out to Albuquerque or Tucson, we'd be all over it. Or, even better would be Bakersfield. But yeah, that's a really cool deal.
Yeah, run what you brung, as long as it's got that Funny Car body on there.
Man, what a show. I mean, I'd just like to go there, and watch the show. I mean, it's a real good deal.
Yeah. So now, where do you get all your fire safety equipment from?
I run Auto Power seat belts, and I really, I run them on all my cars, and, I get great service from them. They're here in San Diego, and they've got top-notch stuff, so I use them for my safety belts. I've got Simpson helmet and other gear. I've got a lot of Dennis Taylor safety equipment as well, including my carbon fiber seat, my transmission blanket, and my diaper. So those are the three main companies that I work with in terms of safety equipment, and they're all, top-notch, needless to say.
Now, what would you consider to be the milestones of your drag racing career?
Well, that's a great question. I've kind of talked about, the whole career, and I really feel that one of the milestones that I hit with early in my career was I made the final round at the ET Finals. I lost to Kyle Seipel that year, but I felt like instead of winning small races, I felt like I showed up at a big race and did pretty well. I won back when Federal Mogul had a $1,000 check for the cars that ran dead on their dial in the super classes. I won that at the Phoenix National event one year. I ran dead on 890 with a 0 and got a big Happy Gilmore check. I got to go up to the starting line on Sunday, which was pretty cool. But I have a lot of unfinished business in those categories, meaning Super Comp, for instance, because I never did win a Wally there. I won, a few David Layton type Southern California Series races, but a lot of unfinished business there. But that was kind of a milestone for me. I felt like I had at least had proven to myself that I could do it. And then the next milestone would be getting my crossover license into a funny car. Jack Beckman was driving for Dennis Murphy in the Ground Zero funny car in Sifka, and they did really well. And he and the Super Comp car had made it to the Chicago race, the All-Stars. And so there was a race at Tucson. They didn't have a driver, and Jack called me up and said, "Hey, would you like to drive Dennis's car?" I said, "Sure." So I got the crossover my license, or upgrade my license in that funny car, and that was a real milestone for me, because it again, with the self-confidence and just proving to myself that I could do it. I got my license signed by Jack and Jeff Deal, a couple big name drivers, and I felt like I made a bit of a leap there to the next level. And then, of course, like we talked about earlier, showing up at the March meet on Nitro and, looking halfway decent, that was a big milestone for us, because a friend of ours that we raced with, Lyle Greenberg, out of Albuquerque.
Yeah, the cone hunter.
Yeah, the cone hunter. He's a great guy, and he's helped us out so many times over the years. And I remember when he called me and told, I called him actually when I heard he bought that car and was going Nitro, and he kind of told me, kind of pumped me up a bit, telling me that, you get to a certain point in your racing career and you say, if I don't do it now, I might never do it. And I thought to myself, that's true. So I started trying to put it on paper if I could actually switch over to the, the Lenco and the titanium can and the clutch and the, different blower and nitro and all of that. And I started putting it on paper and talking to some other friends, and, Keith Clark and Del Worsham were a couple guys that I talked to about a tune-up and a combination, and they both, really were supportive. And long story short, Lyle basically pumped me up and made that milestone or that step to nitro, and, I don't regret it one bit. My bank account might say otherwise, but but it's a lot of fun.
All right, now we're hitting some fun questions here now.
Sure.
Now, outside the sport of drag racing, do you have any other hobbies?
Yeah, I do. My dad and I shared another hobby too. When I was growing up, we had a love for trains, so we would ride trains, watch trains, model trains, and some of my children growing up too. Dad and I would always, there'd always be a train under the Christmas tree type of thing. So that's a hobby. We actually went when we found out Fontana was closed last weekend. We said, okay, we're going to go train watching. So my sons and I went train watching. So that's kind of plan B if this racing thing doesn't work out, is just to have fun with trains. And I've also played the tuba for years through junior high, high school, college, and so on and so forth. And I do that from time to time. So believe it or not, I'm a tuba playing drag racer.
Now, have you ever played any sports?
I played 1 year of wrestling, 1 year of football. Nothing to write home about. I think I fit in better in the marching band in high school with my talents. So don't get me wrong, I love sports. And it's kind of hard seeing my Aztec basketball team, number 5 in the country, not able to play right now with all that's going on. But yeah, love sports.
Now, if you were able to time travel and go back in the time, would you do anything differently with your racing career?
Time travel. I don't know if I'd do anything necessarily different with my racing career other than, maybe I would have bought a set of slicks before the March meet this year, but it would be fun. I tell you, you'd probably feel the same way. It'd be a lot of fun to time travel and go to a drag race like, the 1970 U.S. Nationals or something. That would be a lot of fun.
That would be awesome. Now, if you and the family have time to go on a vacation, what's your favorite vacation getaway?
Well, we were lucky enough a few years ago to Costa Rica, and man, we just talk about it all the time. It's just so beautiful, and the people are beautiful, and the jungles and the beaches and the wildlife. And so, that was really something. But another thing we like to do is we like going on basically like the Griswolds type vacation.
Right.
We've done a few times where we hop in I use the same dually that I tow my race car trailer with. We'll tow the trailer out to a camping trailer out to whether it's Yellowstone or we've been all over the western states, camping.
Now, what is your favorite food to eat?
Oh man, being from San Diego, I just love Mexican food. When I leave, let's say I go on business or something or travel and come back, it's like, all right, I got to go get a carne asada burrito. It's like, that's my thing. I just love the Mexican food here in San Diego.
Favorite beverage?
Oh man, it's got to be beer. I've my guilty pleasure is I've got a kegerator in the garage, and it gets about this time of night. It's about 8 o'clock here in San Diego. I might go pour a pint and relax. Stone Brewery's down the way, and I don't know if you've had their beer, but it's always fun to go down there and get a mini keg and bring it home so I can have a after work cold one.
What's your favorite music?
Agent Orange. Part of the reason for that name is not just like nitro being a volatile chemical and Agent Orange having that connotation, but also there's a punk band named Agent Orange. I must admit, I'm not like the biggest Agent Orange punk band fan, but they fit into that genre. And growing up in Southern California in the early 80s, there was a lot of that going around. So I liked punk back then, but currently, I'll listen to 88.5 FM out of LA quite a bit, during the day on the radio. And I guess you'd call it, what do you call that now? Adult alternative. I guess I'm at that point in my life cycle here, but that's what I like.
All right, now what's been your most embarrassing moment out on the track?
Oh man, just embarrassing moment. How do I pick one? No, I'm kidding. Oh, jeez. I'm thankful. Well, I mean, there are things that I kick myself over, but in terms of embarrassing myself, fortunately, I haven't had anything like that. I mean, just flat out embarrassing. I'm really blessed between my dad and back in the day and my crew right now. They're tip top and they make sure everything's right, so they make me look good. So I have to say I haven't really been too embarrassed out there.
All right, what's been the fondest memory of your drag racing career?
Oh wow, with that question, the thing that pops into my head was when we won the Governor's Cup in '08 with the funny car, our first year out. I remember we drove all night to come home. We didn't get a hotel. We drove all night, so we pulled up at the house here in Fallbrook it must have been about 10 a.m. And I remember taking the trophy out with my dad and I, and my wife and two kids come out, and we just kind of sat on the front porch and looked at that trophy. And that had to be the moment if I had to pick one. That was really satisfying.
Favorite movie of all time?
Oh, man. Favorite movie of all time? It sounds dumb, but I mean, it's always got to be something, the type of movie that you can watch anytime and then quote anytime. I mean, it'd have to be like Caddyshack. I mean, it's just, when I watch movies, it's usually as a diversion and a way to just relax and have fun. And that movie just says it all to me, Caddyshack.
Yeah, I always love watching that little gopher running.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, another good one is Groundhog Day.
Yep, there's another one. Yep. We got that in common, it sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Eric, I want to thank you very much for taking time to do this interview.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
You have any final words, thank you, shout-outs, any kind of stuff like that before we close?
Well, feel free to look for our happenings out on Facebook. It's the Gates Motorsports AA Fuel Altered page. A lot of people are, following that, and for people that are listening, go there and you can see information about our next race and the types of things we were talking about here. And hopefully, this race will happen in May, and we can actually post some videos of solid A to B low 6-second runs on nitro for you.
Yeah, when you go on the page, make sure you give the page a like too.
Absolutely.
Now, are you on any other social medias, like Twitter or Instagram, anything?
I am not. I'm pretty much either in the garage or on Facebook. That's it.
Yeah. So now, for online, do you have merchandise online that people can purchase?
We do. There's a page on there with links to T-shirt sales and hats as well. All proceeds go directly to Nitro, so we thank you in advance.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Eric.
Hey, my pleasure. Have a good night.
You have a great night, too.
You too.
Bye bye.